I'm just laughing because he got beat up so bad. He got beat up so bad. Sorry, I'm just laughing. He got beat up so bad. Sorry, I'm just laughing.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay where we're covering today's top boxing news.
I'm sure that most of you have heard by now that Dillian Whyte's next opponent choice has been decided, and to no one's surprise, it is, in fact, Alexander Povetkin. We've known for some weeks now that Alexander was in the running, among some others, and while some chose to shy away from the opportunity to fight with Dillian Whyte, a pay-per-view attraction, a marquee fighter in his own backyard, Povetkin is stepping up to the plate, and for Povetkin, this presents a financial opportunity, a bigger financial opportunity than he just got fighting Michael Hunter. That was a great fight. Both guys showed their shit. They fought to a draw. But this is a bigger money fight for Povetkin than that fight was. So there's a financial incentive, but there are other elements in play as well. Lest we forget, Dillian Whyte is the WBC's interim champion. And in fighting Povetkin, he's putting that on the line. So if by some chance Povetkin were to beat him, he would become the WBC's mandatory challenger to the WBC title, regardless who's holding it. Right now, that's Tyson Fury. But the basic idea here is that for Povetkin, this very much is an opportunity in more ways than one. So we can see why he'd want to take on the likes of a Dillian Whyte, a risky opponent in a risky fight. But we can more or less wrap our minds around, why Povetkin is taking on this challenge. For Whyte, it's a little different. There's no other way to explain Dillian Whyte taking on this fight aside from he's a game rooster. He's a game-bred fighter. He doesn't shy away from anything or anybody. There's no other way to explain it, because for Dillian Whyte, he's taking on a risky guy. He's taking on a risky opponent for no other reason.
And he wants to.
Yes, then that's what he wants to do. It's different when Michael Hunter fights the likes of an Alexander Povetkin, because Michael is still trying to make his bones. He needs those kinds of names on his resume, you understand, and that involves taking risks.
He has to.
But for Dillian, who's already been there and done that with a lot of guys,
He doesn't have to.
he's the WBC's interim champion, so he is in line for a title shot. He's got that to lose, He's got something to lose. He doesn't care. He's going in there anyway with a risky guy that has a very risky left hook. I mean, I know that Povetkin has seen better days, that he's getting older like we're all getting older, but he showed that he's still got it against Michael Hunter.
Yeah.
That he's nobody's patsy. You're not just going to walk in there and do whatever the fuck you feel like doing, okay? Alexander Povetkin is the kind of opponent that most guys don't willfully take on. That this is the kind of guy that you don't normally see someone dealing with unless they have to, for some reason or another. Like, Michael Hunter's got to make his bones, so he needs a name. In order to get a name, you got to fight the likes of a Povetkin. For Anthony Joshua, Povetkin was his mandatory challenger. And because, Deontay Wilder had not signed his end of the contract that was sent to him over a year ago, Ryabinski and Povetkin, they were pushing the WBA to enforce their title shot, and they got it. So Joshua had to deal with that guy.
Would allow me to refresh your memory.
Those of you out there might remember that in the midst of what were Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder's set of negotiations well over a year ago, Alexander Povetkin had secured a WBA mandatory slot. And him and Ryabinski, they were putting a lot of pressure on the WBA to enforce the mandatory that, we're not just going to sit around waiting for these two guys to iron out their situations. If they haven't come to terms yet, then I want my shot. They put a lot of pressure on the WBA, a lot of pressure on Eddie Hearn to make the fight happen with Anthony Joshua. And as a result of Deontay Wilder not signing the contract that was sent to him, Povetkin got his shot. We all know he lost that fight.
He got knocked out.
But that set of negotiations lends insight into what could happen if by some chance Povetkin were to beat Dillian Whyte, that whosoever is in possession of the WBC title should expect Alexander to come knocking at their door if he wins that fight. They're going to push for their shot regardless of who it's with, whether it's with Wilder or it's with Fury. We all know what happened with Wilder back when, Alexander was his mandatory challenger. The Meldonium scandal, the pads.
Way back when.
It's unclear that Wilder will
Get it back.
be in possession of that green belt again. I mean, doesn't look like it, in July he might get a beating worse than the one he just got 2 weeks ago,
Yeah, he might.
But better still, if Povetkin were to beat Dillian Whyte in May, whosoever holds the WBC title, whether it's Wilder or Fury, they might end up having a deal with this guy, because they're gonna push for that shot. At minimum, that's what you know. So we can see what the incentive is for Povetkin to take on Dillian. He has these things to gain, these things to look forward to. For Whyte,
He's game.
a lot more simple, and there's no other way you can explain it aside from, Dillian Whyte don't duck nobody. You don't shy away from challenges. That's what you can chalk it up to, because it is a risky fight. Povetkin still packs enough punch to get a guy out of there. Oh, I know his explosivity may have dulled a bit in recent years, and his reflexes aren't what they used to be, but a guy's punch, is the last thing to go, and Povetkin's still got his. So it is a risky fight to where the man opposite the ring of Dillian does stand a fighting chance, and for some reason, Dillian wants to lock horns with him. There's no way to explain this other than Dillian Whyte is just a game-bred fighter. The only guys that struggle with this concept, this characteristic of Dillian, are Deontay Wilder's fans, because if you ask around, most everyone else will tell you Dillian Whyte will fight anybody. He is the heavyweight division's can man. Consider that he took a chance on fighting Anthony Joshua in the pro ranks. They had their spat in the amateurs, but he decided to risk his O against Anthony Joshua before Anthony Joshua even became a champion. He took a risk with that guy. He took a risk against Derek Chisora. I'd say Derek Chisora was the more experienced guy, gave him all he could handle in the first fight.
Remember that?
A fight some people thought Derek Chisora won. What does Dillian do? He fights the guy a second time. Knocks him out in the rematch. He's given the runaround for many months, well over a year now, well over 2 years now. He's given the runaround by the WBC in regards to becoming the mandatory challenger. They order this guy to fight a high-risk, low-reward opponent in Oscar Rivas, and what does he do? He fights the fucker, beats him, dominates him. So believe me when I say that Dillian Whyte is no stranger to taking risks. That's what he does, and that's why the people over there in the UK love him, because he's not perfect. It's not a foregone conclusion that he wins all his fights, but he has them anyway. Because of this demeanor, this attitude that Dillian Whyte has towards risky fights and challenging challengers, he has created an environment for himself to where he doesn't need Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, or Deontay Wilder to pull in a lucrative payday. He can have
His own.
lucrative paydays on his own, perhaps not on the scale of those fights, but better still, he has carved out a lane for himself, independent of what other big names are out there. That's impressive. That's impressive. For context, understand that Dillian Whyte has so chosen to keep busy with another top 10 fighter like himself, where most other guys will keep busy with a Shondell Winters, a Robert Hellenius, like Adam Kalnaki's about to keep busy with him this weekend. Andy Ruiz's name is tied to Chris Areola.
Turn down Whyte.
And look at the guys who Luis Ortiz keeps busy with. That is, if Wilder doesn't give him a call. What, Travis Kaufman? Christian Hammer?
What?
Whereas Dillian Whyte has so decided to take on another top 10 fighter like himself. That's how he has so decided to keep busy. Normally, a guy with something to lose, a guy on the eve of a title shot, a guy in Dillian Whyte's shoes, they won't decide to take on a risky opponent like a Povetkin, not by choice, but that's what he's decided to do. And that lends the insight, that substantiates Dillian Whyte's claim as this division's kin, man, that this guy's pretty much willing to fight anybody. I imagine that Dillian Whyte is going to fight this fight very similar to how he fought the Oscar Rivas fight. Judiciously, expeditiously behind his jab, because as we all know, Povetkin is a mid-range to inside hooker. So as long as you can keep him out, you can neutralize a good chunk of his offense. And the best way to do this is to heavily employ the jab. We know that Dillian can do this. We know that Dillian is fully capable of fighting this fight behind the left hand. Trading with Povetkin, especially in the early rounds, the early goings of this fight, is ill-advised, as that plays right into his hands. That's where he wants the fight to be fought. And the entirety of the fight, he is working to get there, mid-range to inside, deep in the pocket, where he can shoot those compact hooks of his. A lot of mustard on him.
He can bang.
Behooves Dillian Whyte, if he wants to secure the victory, to keep Povetkin out. Wear him down round by round in the early goings of the match so that you can finish him off with a left hook in the later rounds. The later rounds where the weight of all of Alexander Povetkin's amateur and professional exploits and his age may catch up to him. That's Dillian's best bet and his safest bet to get this guy and get this guy out of there. So I'm very much looking forward to this card. Keep your eyes peeled for it in early May. Moving on. Some big news broke yesterday in regards to DAZN, their future moving forward, and what they mean to do. That DAZN is expanding their market to, get this, if you haven't heard it already, 200 countries, 200 territories. Here today, DAZN caters to 9 countries around the world. 9, that's a good number of countries, all things considered, because we are talking about the global market.
It's a lot of people.
And here today, they're available in 9 countries. But moving forward, as of May, they're going to make themselves available to 200 plus countries, 200 plus territories around the world. Valuable territories like Australia, who have their own boxers, their own boxing scene. There's a decent-sized fight going down real soon between Jeff Horn, the fighting school teacher, and Kostya Tszew's boy, Tim Tszyu. That's a genuinely intriguing fight because, as we all know, Jeff Horn's got a lot of guts, a lot of grit, a lot of determination, in spite of his limitations. And Tim, you know, he shows promise, but is he actually ready to be in there with someone like Jeff? What this global expanse from DAZN creates is an environment to where you can watch most any fight, anywhere, around the world, no matter where it is. Australia, India, Poland, Scandinavia, Mexico, Russia, Southeast Asia, and the United Kingdom all represent very valuable boxing markets with many potential customers. And this creates a situation for the platform to where, yeah, they get the benefit from global expanse, but so do the fighters, because there's that many more eyes around the world for your fights. And that could bring, on a long enough timeline, that much more revenue into the sport of boxing, that many more venue options, that many more markets, that you're not limited now to fighting in the United States the way you were before in previous eras of boxing. I mean, that's why they characterized the United States as the Mecca of boxing, because no matter where you were from, you had to come here to make it big. And the environment this creates is where you don't have to be limited to doing that
Anymore.
The eyes of the world will be fixed on what DAZN has to offer, and I dare say that's very encouraging. That's very promising. A one-stop hub for all the boxing around the world. In situations like Jeff Horn versus Michael Zarafa 2, for example, their recent rematch which went down, no U.S. broadcasters picked it up. So if you were here stateside and you wanted to watch that in real time, you got the short end of the stick. I mean, I had to catch a replay of it on YouTube. I didn't get to watch it in real time, because I reiterate, no U.S. broadcasters picked it up. And what this global expanse from DAZN indicates is that for the boxing fan who wants to see certain fights that are happening in certain parts of the world, you will be able to do this with the male fighters, with the female fighters. These things are made possible by this global expanse, expanding to 200 separate territories. It brings that much more content to that many more people interested in seeing it. And for the fighters, it's beneficial. For the sport, it's beneficial because you're talking about a monthly revenue stream that's coming in from around the world. You're not limited to just catering to the Brits or just catering to the Americans or just catering to the Eastern Europeans. No, the eyes of the world get to see as much of the sport as they can, and that's beneficial to the sport because that much more money comes into it. And the more money that comes into it, the more opportunities open up for the fighters. Now, for those of you out there that are interested in how this global expanse might affect Eddie Hearn and Matchroom's existing relationship with Sky Sports over there in the UK, well, they're not going to be showing Matchroom UK shows on DAZN, but they will be showing Matchroom USA shows on DAZN. For example, this past weekend's show.
You saw it.
You know, Mikey Garcia, Jesse Vargas, Chocolatito, Cal Yafai. That kind of show that's happening here in America will be available over there in the UK on DAZN. That in unison with Golden Boy cards or Triple G fights, those are the kind of fights that they're going to make available to the people over there specifically in the United Kingdom. But as far as Matchroom UK, that relationship with Sky Sports, it still exists, although I will say that it may become strained over time as the priority for Matchroom may become the relationship with DAZN as opposed to the relationship with Sky Sports. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. As far as Anthony Joshua's fights, they're still going to be aired on Sky Sports box office, Sky Sports pay-per-view for the time being, but one can make the inference that this could change over time. It very well could. Because it all boils down to finance, folks. The relationship with DAZN, who caters to a global market, is a more lucrative relationship than a relationship with Sky Sports, which really just caters to the Brits.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, more or less, you know, the existing relationship, that is a limited market. So if you have to make a decision, you know, moving forward, who are you going to go with? Who's more beneficial to you? Who do you stand to make more money, you know, pairing up with? It would have to be DAZN. It's a global market that would cater to 200 territories, 200 plus territories around the world. It's common sense, really. And, you know, this scheduled global expanse is set to be going down in May, the day of Canelo Alvarez's next fight, which is rumored to be against Billy Joe Saunders. We'll talk more about that fight in another video, provided that's the one he's having. Better still, the question that's probably on every boxing fan's mind is whether or not this global expanse is good for boxing or bad for boxing. And I dare say it's good for boxing. It's that many more eyes on the sport, that much more revenue being poured into it, and it normalizes things, stabilizes them. In a sport where you pretty much open and close the same night, this global expanse opens a door for unprecedented opportunities for both the fans and the fighters.